gets shared to our YouTube channel. So there we go. Live stream started. Once again, this is the Startup TNT Investment Summit 9 company info session. My name is Adrian. I'm the Calgary lead. I'm joined today by my colleagues from across the prairies, across Western Canada. We've got Richard. Richard, you want to come off mute, say hi?
Sure, now I have to find where Zoom is. Hey everyone.
Richard, where are you? You want to tell us where you are, what you do?
Treaty One territory, Winnipeg, Manitoba. What else do you want? What else do you need from me?
Manitoba leading the Manitoba Summit. All right. Mike.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike. I'm the Saskatchewan lead based here in Saskatoon. We've also got Hassan down in Regina who helps us down there for anybody who might be joining from Regina or Southern Saskatchewan.
Right on. And Kyle.
Everybody, I'm the Edmonton lead.
Awesome. So the four of us are the region leads, the community leads for this summit. I know we have a few other team members who are either on the call already or joining. Behind the scenes, running the levers and dials is Winnie. Winnie's there she is, Startup TNT, the black screen there. But yeah, we have a great team headquartered in Edmonton that runs our operations. And then we also have in Calgary, I've got a colleague, Neil, here in Calgary. And then in Saskatoon, Mike's also got his colleagues. Jesse's also in Saskatoon, and he's our community development lead. So yeah, so big team at TNT. We also have in each region, we're continuing to build out our ambassador program. So, lots of different people on the team, lots of different resources, people who've been through summits before. But yeah, that's the team. And let's just talk about the summit though. I'm going to share my screen. I think the correct order here is to start presentation mode first. Let's see. Stop that. All right. So presentation, present. All right, and then share screen. Okay, everyone can see the slides. Anyone, Kyle, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the slides? Okay, Richard can see them. Fantastic. Okay, so here we are. We are on Summit 9. Summit 9, but we've actually done 33 of these. So how does that work? Well, a bit of an origin story. Startup TNT started as a happy hour in Edmonton in 2019. Our co-founders met, I think, on week 6 of the happy hour in Edmonton. It was really designed as a place for angel investors, founders, other people in the community to get together and just talk about some of the successes, challenges, and everything that goes along with raising money for startups, building new startups, getting people in the ecosystem together. From there, our co-founders, Tim and Zach, ideated and developed the idea for an investment summit. So Investment Summit 1 was just in Edmonton. It was in February of 2020. From there, it expanded through the pandemic, went virtual to include Calgary, and then included Saskatchewan. We also expanded to do some sector-specific summits. So when we do one summit right now, when we do a sector summit, like we wrapped up in Q1, that's actually 3 summits. We did a clean tech summit, we did a clean tech summit, we did an agri-food summit, and we did a life sciences summit. This is the regional summits now. So this regional summits, these are sector agnostic, and we do them in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Edmonton, and Calgary. So when we do one, we do 4. So that's how we've gone. Summit 9 are going to be our 34th, 5th, 6th, and 7th summit. And what have we been doing at this? So, we've in the last, going back to 2023 here is all we're showing here. We've got 14 summit winners, logos there. And we've also done an additional 30 side deals. And that doesn't even include some of the follow-on deals that we've done as Startup TNT. So for those of you who've logged on today to learn more about what we're doing, this is Summit 9. that we're talking about that kicks off here at the end of April. We could not have built this or done this without the support of our partners and sponsors. I'm not sure if Neil is on this call or not. I don't believe he is, so I'm going to go forward here, unless Neil comes off mute, and just give you a kind of the highlights here. In Saskatchewan, we have the support of Innovation Saskatchewan. In Alberta, we have the support of Alberta Innovates, and across all regions, so Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta that we currently operate, we have the support of Prairies Economic Development Canada. So it's Prairies Canada, part of the federal government. But we also have corporate sponsors. So we are Best Friends Forever, API, which helped us start the Life Sciences Summit, and Osler, a law firm here, a national law firm that works with startups and companies across the country, but is very big in the startup space as well. And we also have our best friend sponsors. So some of these sponsors have been with us since the beginning. We have RBCX, CBRE, two of our older sponsors, same with AEC. And then we also have some newer sponsors. M&P joined us last year, Boast, Fasken, McKercher is a sponsor of ours in Saskatchewan, and Chess Club is also in Saskatchewan. So yeah, some of our best friends and Best Friends Forever sponsors. We also have lots of others. We have our close friends. BDC have been supporting us, I think, since the start as well. Accelerate Fund as well. In Edmonton, we have KRP. And then across all of our regions, we work with the Hunter Hub students and the USEED Fund. And then in Calgary, we have the Calgary Chamber. In Saskatchewan, we have an Infinity Shred. Saskatchewan and I believe Manitoba, sorry. And then our community supporters, we are a grassroots community organization. It's why we hold these networking events every Thursday in 5 cities, not just 4, soon to be 6 cities. Stand by for that announcement this month. But we do that, we do that with our friends. We do that with our community supporters. We work with everyone who's actively involved in the startup sphere ecosystem, and the logos you can see there. And with that, I think if you would like an introduction to any of the people on this, we'd be more than happy to introduce you to these or anyone else you would like an introduction to. Okay, so we started with some intros of the summit leads. But I mentioned our team is big. Some of the faces here in our operations team, like Mandy running up marketing, Jonah, our operations lead, I didn't mention. And then, Tim and Zach, I kind of mentioned their names briefly, but there they are on the right, our co-founders based in Edmonton. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned Will Johnson leading our BC team. Today is officially his first day as a full-time employee. Will joined us for the sector summits and is here to stay. So I love it. Okay. Moving forward, I'm gonna kind of move on to I'll start with the TNT effect, and then I'm gonna pass this off to some of my colleagues to talk about some of the next slides. I said we've done 33 summits. We've invested over $13.5 million into 96 companies. And we've done that by activating and syndicating investment from 412 investors so far, and all Canadian investors from across the country, BC to Ontario, possibly further east. I'm not 100% sure, but people do move. So some of these names may have moved there, and lots of investments. Some of these investments are winning deals of summits. Those checks can range from sort of $150,000 to $250,000 or higher. But a lot of our deals are also side deals. How do we do 96 investments in companies in 33 summits? Well, that's with side deals. We've done an average of 2 side deals per summit so far. And so the logos there, some pretty awesome companies there. And a lot of these companies, I think it should be mentioned, have come through several summits. So no, just because a company doesn't win a summit does not preclude them from coming back. And some of them, I can look at least 1 or 2 logos here that I know for a fact we're in 3 to 4 summits before winning investment from our team. And that's because they come through and we see progress, we see traction, and we start to see more, get to know them and follow the story. And then they're successful in getting summit in a future summit. So if this is your first time, or whether this is your second, third, or fourth time, thank you for being a part of this and showing interest in Startup TNT. With that, I'm going to pass it on to my colleague in Edmonton, Kyle. Why should someone join us for Summit 9?
Well, as the slide says, it's an opportunity to showcase your company to a very supportive community. Um, I would say it's a very founder-friendly environment. Everybody here, all the investors are very collaborative and community-minded, and they want to see local entrepreneurs succeed. So they can leverage their professional experience, their network, make introductions, and then ultimately invest. So you get a lot of experience talking to investors, going through the due diligence process, working on your business pitch. You'll get a lot of valuable feedback from qualified investors. So you have a mixture of semi-professional investors, amateur investors, but you get a lot of positive feedback and critical feedback as well. And then you also increase your visibility in the startup community. So the advantage of getting involved in a summit like this is that in a typical regional summit, you're dealing with maybe 30 investors. So you can get a lot of reach into the community just through leveraging that network. And also, next week on Monday and Tuesday, we're hosting an info session called Demystifying DD Due Diligence Sessions. And I think Winnie will post a link in the chat for that.
Yeah, or I think Mike may be posting that. Yeah, that's the session funded by Alberta Innovates and the CIC. It's 2 days. It's 1 to 2:30 Monday and Tuesday. And that is it's an education session on just kind of beyond the pitch. So what does due diligence look like? How should you think about preparing for due diligence as you go forward? So yeah, certainly encourage everyone who's interested in raising to think about joining us for that session, for those sessions, I should say. And we're going to have one of our past summit winners come through, and we'll do a mock DD session as part of that. Okay, Kyle. So, what investment structure?
So that works. So at the start of the summit, each investor commits $5,000 into the pot. That typically works out to, usually we average around 30 investors, but $150,000 goes to the winning company. And then not only that, the VC fund, Startup TNT has a VC fund that will follow on invest. So they'll invest an additional 50,000. So you're typically looking at maybe $200,000 investment. It's nice and clean on your cap table. Instead of having 30 angel investors individually listed on there, you'll just have typically Startup TNT LP as just one line item.
Right on.
And not only that, but there are opportunities, I believe, for the top 5 companies to have side deals. So when the investors vote at the end of the day, one company gets all the initial investment, but there's a lot of investors that had other companies that they really liked or founders that they really liked. So there's an opportunity for those investors to pile onto those companies as well. Similar to the winning company, it's just one line item on your cap table. But a lot of the side deals can be pretty significant as well. So even if you don't win the summit, there's a big opportunity to get investment as well.
Right on.
And then the VC fund does not follow up to that.
Should say, guys, if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. This is something we get asked about a lot. And yeah, why is one name on your cap table important, Kyle?
Just makes it cleaner for future raises and for other investors and paperwork, and it makes it easier as well for the angels to manage their own tax affairs and stuff like that. Anything else that you're doing?
No, it's good. So yeah, it's a great way to get a lot of people investing in your company, but not mess up your cap table, right? To really sort of synthesize this.
Yeah, when you're going through future raises, you don't need to have 200 people listed on your cap table.
Okay, and TNT Capital VC. Mike, tell us about the VC fund.
Right. So yeah, we went over the structure there and about the winning company. So TNT has a venture capital fund that will co-invest into all of our winners. So for those of you or for who wins a summit, you get that pre-committed amount of the $5,000 checks. Then you get an additional $50,000 from TNT Venture Capital, and that's again just syndicated through the same investment as the angel checks. And then as we do that, we match you with a venture partner who will be an investor in the venture capital fund, who also has a background or experience or can give you sort of feedback and an advantage as you go on to keep growing and raising Series A. So they'll meet with you regularly and be sort of your regular contact from the fund to support you into growing under the next stage, and also connecting you with the broader TNT network. And then with the fund as well, there's opportunity for follow-on investment. There's capital being held back in the fund for follow-ons in future rounds in those winning companies.
Great, and I'm just answering a question in the chat. Cool. Okay, we'll go on for next. Is your company a good fit, Mike? How should people think about this?
Yeah, so there's a few requirements here. On first, on the participation side, do you have the time to participate in the summit? So it's an 8-week due diligence process starting soon. And now I'll go through the calendar of key dates shortly. Sort of the further you make it through the summit, the more of a commitment it becomes, but also the more likely you are to get a check. The ability to join us for the top 20 pitch night on March 9th and the top 5 finale pitch night on June 23rd or June 13th is also important. In extreme cases, say somebody's sick or there's a really important conference down in the States, there is the option of doing remote, but we want founders to do everything in their power to be there in person. You'll do better in the summit if you're there in person. And you'll be able to make connections with the community if you're there in person as well. So make sure you block off those dates in your calendars now if you're looking to participate. And the winning deal will raise $150,000 or more in total from the TNT Syndicate and the venture capital fund. So there needs to be that much available in your round that you want to raise. In terms of stage, we're looking at pre-Series A companies and pre and post revenue companies. If you have any questions about that, you can put that in the chat. We're using a little bit of shorthand here as well. So if you're not familiar with any of those terms, just put your questions in the chat. Geographic reason, obviously Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba for these summits. The main events will be in those major cities, but you can be from anywhere in the province to apply. And sector-wise, we're looking for scaling startups operating in any vertical or sector, but in general, looking at startups that can look to scale to become international businesses that are growing quite large in 5 to 10 years timeline. And you can see the link there for a full criteria.
For sure. And we are going to share these slides, or I think we make these slides available afterwards as well. I've been reminded by Winnie that we should be reading out the questions, because if you're watching this recording afterwards, you can't see the questions. So Mike, let me ask you, does this model also fit our target investor if the investor is likely a high net worth individual?
Yes, Richard answered that question in the chat as well. The investors in TNT are high net worth or high income individuals. And that is because in Canada, to be an accredited angel investor, you have to pass certain financial thresholds in order to invest in private companies.
Awesome. Richard, can you both participate as an investor and a startup?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. So there's conflict of interests, right? So if you're trying to be an investor inside the same kind of summit that you are pitching as a startup, so that would be, probably not a good idea, just from, again, conflict of interest and other due diligence, that's just going on. So what you could do is, if you like this process and you want to also be an investor and see on the investor side, and see how we kind of work and operate, you can be an investor in another summit. So say you are a company from Manitoba, and you want to invest as well, pick Saskatchewan, right? Like, so you still get that process and whatnot, and then you're just kind of isolating yourself from any conflicts.
Yes, and we will isolate you off from your stream. We have had that happen once that I'm aware of, just in the last year. Also, what we've seen a few times is a founder sort of applying maybe making the top 20, then at some point not making it further, and we'll get to what this means in a bit, but then participating at the top 10 stage and beyond. We also have seen that as an investor. Okay, so Mike, the timeline, probably the most important slide.
Oh yeah, so here's the full timeline for the summit here. You'll see those lines at the top, the light due diligence and intensive due diligence. This aligns with basically the further you get through the summit, the more intense due diligence gets. So that won't apply for everyone. We will narrow down the field as we go so that investors have more time to focus on companies and make it further through the process. But that bottom line, everybody has access to throughout the whole process. So we'll have weekly entrepreneur education that's available to everybody. That's all virtual. Come out and attend those. Really great speakers. Oh,
sorry, I was checking this. There's something in the chat about made the mistake of clicking it. Oh well, there we go. Back to it.
Yeah, we're bringing in really great speakers from venture capital firms, entrepreneurs, others to lead those sessions to kind of help you along the raise process. And then those key dates. So applications are already open. You head to startupgnt.com/raise to apply right now. We've got a couple weeks. So April 15th is when applications close. And so make sure if you're looking to apply to get your applications in before that date. And then the April 29th is when you as founders will sort of start the process when we select top 20. So in that application, you have you'll send in your pitch deck, some other information. Investors will look at that information and vote on top 20. And then at top 20 is when we start some of the due diligence, and that's when you'll be getting involved. So then we'll have a May 9th, the top 20 pitch night in all your major regions. May 13th, we'll select the top 10. So this is not public. So please, when we do select top 10 for those companies, don't share that publicly. That's just an internal process. And then top 5 will be selected on May 30th. That is public, but just wait for us to announce it. And then you can share and promote and get excited and get people up to come out for the summit finale on June 13th. So that's when all this ends. That's when investment decisions are end. And as I sometimes like to put it, just we sort of do sort of Dragon's Den in reverse. So when you get a yes on Dragon's Den, you're getting a yes to due diligence. We front load all of that, right? So all of that due diligence is happening in the 8 weeks prior to that summit finale. So on that summit finale, investment decisions are being made, checks are ready to cut, term sheets are ready to sign, and ready to go. It does take a few weeks for funds to transfer and for term sheets to close. So you expect that sort of late June, potentially into July, depending on the company.
Okay, now there was a question in the chat, Mike. You mentioned application deadline April 15th. Can people apply now and then edit or make changes to their application? And until when?
Yes, you can make edits to your application. You can see in the chat there, they say how you can do that, and you can make changes right up to April 15th.
Yes, in your response, there will be a part that says edit your response in your confirmation email. Also, if you apply and don't receive a confirmation email, your application may not have gone through. So you may need to check that. That does happen where people think they've applied and it didn't come through. So make sure you get that confirmation email. Okay. All right. Okay, there's another question in the chat, but I think I will save it for Kyle. Kyle, no, so this is still Mike, isn't it? This is still Mike. Mike, talk us through the DD process and then tell us, how often do we do industry agnostic summits?
Awesome. So we do industry agnostic summits every spring and fall. So we're kicking this one off right now, doing another one in the fall, and then we do our sector specific summits in the winter. Fall is September to November, winter is January to March, and spring is April to June. Yeah, so what can you expect in due diligence? So at those 8 weeks, what's going to be happening during that time? So we always start with introductory coffee meetings. We call them coffee meetings because they're more casual, but we're generally doing them virtually. So you're welcome to have coffee at home if you like. But those are usually just an introductory meeting with a few investors to get to know you as a founder, the problem that you're solving, the market that you're in, some of that high level information that we try and get sort of as quickly as possible in that quick introductory meeting. Those meetings are key in moving from top 20 to top 10. So you want to make sure that you're really efficient in those meetings. We try and have them in a half hour. And so try and answer questions as succinctly as possible while still giving the detail that we need. Another thing to note on these coffee meetings is that because there are so many companies involved, we pre-schedule them. So in your application, we'll ask you some time slots that you're available to mark down in your application. When you mark those down in your application, please block those off in your calendars as well, so that we know that we can schedule meetings with investors at those times. We've got, 20 companies and usually we're around 30 investors in each region. So it can be quite hectic scheduling those all together. So that really helps. Conference meetings, these are just more detailed meetings that happen at later stages of due diligence. So once you make it into top 10, we're getting much more detailed into your company. We're having longer, usually hour-long meetings, sometimes multiple, to ask more questions. We'll be doing reference follow-up. So if you have existing customers, pilot projects, partners, other investors, we might want to talk with them. We'll always sort of be cognizant of wanting to make sure that we're not doing any damage to your customer relationships, investor relationships, anything like that. So we'll make sure that we're working with you to be sensitive with those relationships as we do that. Virtual data rooms, you'll learn more about this through the process if you've never done this before. Data room is basically a shared drive of all of the information all documents and information that we'll need to look at, everything from incorporation documents to organizational structure to financials and projections and everything else that we might want to look at and ask questions in those conference meetings. And then deal structure negotiations. So this usually happens after top 5. We want to make sure that we have term sheets for every company when we get to the finale event so that we're ready to cut checks. So in that stage, people from the investor team and from the TNT team who are deal experts on our team will be talking with you to negotiate deal structure and term sheets at that stage. If you've never negotiated a term sheet before, don't worry, we'll help guide you through that process as well. And we'll also, it's a good idea to invest in a company if you actually know what the product does. So we'll be organizing demos with the companies. If you have a physical product, sometimes an on-site visit, other times just like a virtual demo. And depending on the company, intellectual property reviews, other things like that to kind of dive in deeper in your company.
Right on. That was a lot. Does anyone have any questions on that? Going forward, just throw them in the chat. We'll read it out or put your hand up. Come off mute. It's a friendly environment here. But thank you, Mike. Mike, I like this picture. This is a coffee meeting here, you and Hassan, and what do we got going on over here?
I think this is a finale deliberation meeting. So in the finales, after all the pitches, all the investors go back to a boardroom to deliberate one last time before making decisions. You can see I'm deep in thought, or just very hungry, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and Hassan's clearly making a point. I love it. Okay. All right, Richard, tell us about tell us about the pitch events.
Yeah, so I'm going to start by saying, there's a bunch of us that'll be around the table that have that have been in your shoes, and that's why it's a friendly environment. So so I had a company, and I was in this, you know, kind of realm raising 10 years ago. And I wish that we had Startup TNT back then, to be very honest. The hand holding and friendliness that just goes along when you're doing it for the first time is really, really, really important. I will say that although we do have these, you know, kind of these pitch events as kind of the hallmark moments, it's not about necessarily about the pitch itself. I think pitches can sway, but you know, the reality is, you know, we had a watch party in Manitoba, you know, last month, and we played a game with the students. And you know, they chose which company they would invest in, and no one chose the company that actually won, and that's because, you know, it's really about the due diligence. It's really about the, you know, the investment deal itself, right? And all that hard work that's put in. But at the same time, we want to promote what you guys are doing, what we're doing, what the community is doing, and so we have pitch events. And so pitch nights along the summit. And so the first one, May 9th, that'll be the top 20. So, you know, we might get 25, 30 companies applying. We're going to narrow it down to 20. We do that live. And then as Mike was saying earlier, we kind of narrow it down to 10 and then to 5. And the 5 is the finale night, which will be June 13th, again in person, and that's where investors will deliberate and make that decision, as that beautiful picture of Mike and Hassan were doing a minute ago.
You know what? Let's make sure this is super clear. How many top 20s? Is it just 20 companies, Richard?
No, it's 28 companies in each one, right? So in Manitoba, we have a top 20. In Saskatchewan, they have a top 20. In Calgary, they have a top 20 for southern Saskatchewan. And in Edmonton, they have a top 20 for northern Saskatchewan. So again, so each one is a separate one. And then those investors will do due diligence on those companies with them, and whittle theirs down to 5. So in total, from an investor's perspective, after the finales are done, there's a potential to invest into up to 20 companies from an investor perspective, and that's what gets us really excited.
Yes, no, and Richard makes a good point there. Yeah, we call it the Edmonton Summit, the Calgary Summit, but yeah, it's Northern Alberta, Southern Alberta, and then Saskatchewan and Manitoba, right? So we're not city focused, we're definitely regional, but we're across the prairies. Okay. Let's get into the next slide here.
So I will just say, I'll answer the question in the chat. How many companies typically apply to these programs, to each summit? I will say that Saskatchewan and Manitoba hover around, you know, kind of 22 to 28. And then Edmonton and Calgary are oftentimes much higher. So it is a pretty good kind of set and competitive process. Okay, so the investor decision making process. So this is the fun part. All the investors. So I'm going to take Manitoba as an example. So the Manitoba investors all vote, and so in order to choose the top 20, we sit there and we score, you know, kind of a minimum, like it says, score a minimum of 10 companies each. And we look at those. The highest 20 are the ones that move on to the top 20. But it's all kind of democratic, and it's all about aggregate scores. Once you choose the top, once we have done the top 20, and we move on, we do kind of the same process. So now that we've done a little bit, we've probably had a coffee chat, we've done some light due diligence. So we narrow that down from 20 to 10, again in that same process. So again, a very democratic process, based on aggregate rankings. Then we narrow that down to 5, and those 5 will then pitch. And then at the finale, what happens is we go and deliberate. So y'all pitch your final deck. try and again sway us investors. And then what happens is we go out and deliberate for about an hour and decide, who's going to win. Who do we also want to do side deals with? So we I think every time probably have had side deals. So that means although you didn't win, you're still super investable, right? Like there's a lot of investable companies in the prairies, and so you're still investable. And investors are the investors around the table, whether it's from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, or Alberta, or other places, can now choose to invest and in you as a side deal. And so we have that opportunity. And so that's what's been that again, that from deal flow from an investor perspective, that's really awesome.
Yeah, and Richard, this question's been liked a couple times. Do you have 2 to 3 ingredients that winning companies have in common?
Yes. So when you're early stage, we're really kind of looking at the founding team. How committed are they? How approachable are they? How teachable are they? How are they receptive to communication? There's a lot about the founder. The other kind of structure is the deal structure. Does it make sense for the prairies and for where you're going, where you're at right now? So I would say that those are probably the two, but happy to have Adrian or Kyle or Mike say anything more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And we're a syndicate of angels, 412 angels. And I think each of us has, some similar things we like, and each of us has, little things we like or understand more. And I think you bring a lot of your expertise and your own experience to a lot of your decisions. And, it's a collective decision for the winner. But we see a lot of sides, especially in the side deals. Mike, you've seen Saskatchewan, just so you all know, has the record for the most side deals per summit. I think it's seven deals or 6 side deals in a summit. So I know earlier someone said top 5 good side deals, but actually we've seen in Saskatchewan some of the top 10, and I think maybe even a top 20 get a side deal outside the top 10. Mike, any comment there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, especially on the side deals. It's sometimes finding a champion within the investor group who's really passionate and really excited and goes back to the other investors to basically pitch inside the group for you. Obviously, like founder market fit, traction, market opportunity, all those things matter at the early stage. But investors are people too, and relationships matter. So identifying if there is a champion within that group and then building a relationship with them is also really important. Coming out to the happy hours, seeing people face to face, all that sort of stuff. Fundamentals matter, but people matter too.
Absolutely. Rob's got a question about minimum normally accepted in side deals. So how do we get to that, Mike?
Sorry, sorry, what was that?
So the main syndication is $5,000. What's the minimum normally accepted in a side deal?
Right. So the minimum investment for side deals from investors is 1,000, and then we'll syndicate those. The minimum that goes to the company is dependent on the company. So with each company, we ask them to tell us what's the minimum check size that you want. So much like why we syndicate all of our checks, we also don't want to create problems down the line with people on your cap table with very small investment amounts, right? So a lot of founders for strategic reasons won't want to take $1,000 check or even a $5,000 check. Usually those side deals start at 25K is the lowest check size that we'll syndicate.
That's right. And so it's not often 25 1,000s. It's usually a few 5s and 10s and then maybe a couple thousands here and there. But yeah, the minimum for the investor is 1,000 on the side deals. Good question, Rob. Okay, let's go. I think Richard, what we got next on the program?
Yeah, so I started by saying, I wish Startup TNT existed when I was raising, and this is why, right? So we have the DD meetings, and we're really, next week you're gonna have the ability to spend a couple hours demystifying the due diligence process. But I think it's just really, really important to know what that is and know what that's like. I think that we do a process that's like a little bit heavier for the stage that we're on and in. But that's purposeful. We're actually getting you ready for maybe a larger seed or even a Series A, right? So you're getting ready. You want to know what the process looks like, what people ask. You want to be just ready and prepared, because if you're not prepared, that's a red flag. And as soon as you hit too many red flags, that's when the investment no longer makes sense for investors. So we have the DD meetings, pitching. Right, so we're going to actually have on May 2nd at 10 a.m. Mountain, 11 Central, peer-to-peer pitch practice for all the top 20. So that's all 80 companies. And then we have deal term office hours. So we review everything and for the top 10, and that'll happen kind of May 16th at 10 a.m. Mountain again. And then VC office hours. Because we do such a good job in the due diligence process, we have a bunch of VCs that come in and will sit there and look at who we're investing in and why. We have partnerships with, for instance, BDC Thrive, and so we'll have VC office hours. So we'll bring those VCs in, and so you can speed date with actual venture capital partners that support Startup TNT because they kind of want to find you. And that'll be June 6th. So these are things that you do not want to miss. So mark on your calendar these 4 dates because they're really, really important.
Yeah, there's an important checkbox on your application form, which is, do you give us permission to share your deal with other VCs and partners that we have? We do have a list of, I think, well over, how many do we have, Mike? It's over 120 or so VCs in our kind of VC deal flow sharing list.
Yeah, around 120 to 130 different VCs that we share.
Yeah, so if you do click that, we won't share your confidential information, but if we do like to share deal flow with some of our venture capital friends. It's how we get deal flow back. It is a great way to sort of spread your your network and to more people who could potentially fund your company. Okay, thank you, Richard. One last one here. What should people do to prepare? What do we have for them?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we have a bunch of resources online. So go look, right? Like this is, especially especially if this is kind of the first time you're doing this, go look, see what other people do, see how the process is, both from a pitching perspective and the due diligence and data rooms. So there's just lots of resources that we've accumulated over time. Some are our own, and some are kind of best practices from industry, and so we pulled those in. So look at the resources that we already have. It's just a great opportunity to kind of move, just accelerate, right? This is if you want to accelerate that the not just the learning but your ability to raise capital, having this educational resource is so important. Again, I wish I had it 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Richard, we're live streaming this, right? Yeah, like it says there, past pitches on our YouTube channel. You can see our past pitch events with all their technical wonder and sometimes missteps, but yeah, all of our past pitch events are on our YouTube channel. Okay, so let's go here. Founder etiquette, Kyle. How should founders comport themselves through this process?
I think probably the most important thing to keep in mind is that the investors in this summit are your friends. They want to help you out. They're going to give you feedback. It's really important to be responsive. It's tough in the due diligence process when there's certain outstanding items that the investors are trying to follow up on. And they don't hear back from the founders for a couple of weeks. That could really hurt you in the summit. I didn't write this slide, but strong opinions loosely held. I really like that. It's important. and you're going to make a lot of friends. Like, so the way you treat the investors and you engage with them, there's a lot of relationships after the summit, regardless of what happens with investors. And I used to invest through TNT before I started here for the last couple of years. I'm still pretty close friends with a lot of founders. So you're going to have an opportunity to make a lot of long-term relationships and people that are going to support you long-term with your company. Um, and I also encourage you to, help out your fellow entrepreneurs. Maybe it's more after the summit, but to help make introductions or to provide feedback. I've spoken with other founders before, and sometimes it can be a lonely process if they're dealing with certain items. So it's good to reach out to, other founders that may have gone through certain situations before, and they can provide you some feedback and guidance.
That's right. Okay, how about communication, Mike? How are we going to communicate through here?
Okay, so once summit starts, you'll be getting weekly email updates from your region leads. So make sure you look at that. That's where all key dates will be, or reminders before key information that we need, when data rooms are being asked for, that sort of thing. And the TNT happy hours. Those are, like I said earlier, great opportunity to get out and build relationships with the other founders, with investors, with your local region lead. Your local region lead will always be at those events. So it's a great opportunity to get in and meet them and build relationships. How about we go quickly over where those are every week? So in Saskatoon, we're always at High Key Brewing for those of you in Saskatoon, and Regina, we're at Blanco Cantina downtown. Adrian, where are you in Calgary?
Right on. Yeah. I mean, they do move in some cities from time to time, but right now in Calgary, we're at Trolley 5 on Thursdays. So on 17th Avenue, Trolley 5. And we're in the private room in the back, the private barrel room. Kyle, how about Edmonton?
So we're currently at Kelly's Pub. It's typically at 6 o'clock, but if there's a hockey game in town, just because there's a bunch of fans that go there beforehand, we'll start right at basically at 7 o'clock.
And Winnipeg, Richard?
Yeah, about I would say 95% of the time we are at King's Head Pub downtown. And if we're not there, they know exactly where we are.
Right. And we do post up these where we are. It gets posted on our LinkedIn every single Wednesday. Posts up where we're going to be on Thursday in all the cities. It's also on our events page, Startup TNT events. You can see in each city where we are on that Thursday. What else do we have for communication here, Mike?
All right, and the entrepreneur resource base. So that'll be something that we're sharing with you. Make use of that and ask questions. Yeah.
Right on. Okay. So we just talked about this at the happy hours. I can't stress this enough. We do them all year round, but during the summit, we get our investors have an extra interest in coming to the happy hours to connect with the founders. I will say during the last summit, I went to a happy hour that had 14 investors and 2 founders at it. And that would have been an incredible opportunity for the founders in the summit to go and meet 14 investors. So I will encourage you, they're not there every week, but the consistency leads to success. I think is an old cliche, right? Like you can show up here and there. That's great. If you can just coming to the happy hours, being present, being in the community is a great way to connect and hopefully help your business. Now, I have 3 kids. I know that's tough on a weekly basis, but it is a great opportunity that we put out there. Okay. And it's not about guys, it's not about drinking, right? It's about fun, connection, making friends. We have lots of people just drinking water and pop, and it's not about partying, it's about networking. Let's be clear. Okay. So if you have any questions, here we are.
Adrian, there is a question that we missed in the chat there. It says, can we pitch 2 projects in the same event? I'm not going to say that we have a hard rule, but I will say from an investor's perspective what this looks like. If you're spread way too thin, for me, that's a red flag, right? So that means you're not potentially putting all your resources into one thing and making sure that like really excels before you move on. you can do whatever you want, but I'll tell you from my perspective, that's a red flag.
I will also say that's 2 applications, I would bet. Right, Richard? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here are your local leads. We are the ones leading your summits for this go around. Again, I'm in Calgary, Mike's in Saskatchewan, Kyle's in Edmonton, Rich is in Manitoba, Hassan's in Regina. You can reach out to one or all of us as little or as often as you want. We are here, we're in the community, we're at our happy hours, and we'd love to meet you guys. So with that, I think just thank you for coming. We're 9 minutes early. Are there any last questions?
While people are thinking of questions, I'm going to reinforce what Adrian just said. Here in Winnipeg, so our happy hours, there's on a early or on a weeknight, there's sorry, not weeknight, but like on a slow night, there's probably about 60 to 70. On one of the bigger nights, there's probably 150 to 170. So really big. So come to those events. And talk to us, talk to investors, talk to the people. We're there to help, right? Like at the end of the day, we're really trying to help startups our founders create really good startups that are investable. And any advice is kind of as you weave your way through this journey could potentially help, right? We make connections. We do all that we can to really push that forward.
For sure. No, that's a really good point. Okay, so there was 2 more. Can we connect with us on LinkedIn? Of course you can. We want you to connect with us on LinkedIn. Please do that. And then Chantal has a question. Any further information on scoring criteria? This is a good one. We don't score the way, we don't score the companies in a quantitative basis. We score them when we vote. So that's the only time we score. I did have a company one time score their own data room. And I wasn't sure what they were doing, but we aren't scoring in a quantitative sense. Every investor I think Mike said earlier, has different things that they value more or less. So it'd be very difficult to objectively score that way. The way we score is a vote, democratic vote. So at the top 20 to 10 stage, let's say, we'll have all 20 companies in a form. And we say rank your top 10 from 1 to 10. And your top company would get 10 points and your 10th company would get 1 point. So that's the scores. And then we weight those, or we basically sum average those across all the investors who vote in that round. And so then that is how the scoring from a vote perspective works. Another question here. Kyle, I'll throw this to you. If they're selected to pitch, is there a pitch coach that can help them?
Actually, on Adrian, this is my first summit. I don't know. What have we done in the past?
So we do peer-to-peer pitch. You've done that. You did that in the last one. The peer-to-peer pitch sessions. So 1 week before the pitch nights, there is actually a session with some of us on the team, as well as some of the other people in the summit, and we mix it up. So it's not just Calgary with Calgary founders. It's going to be a Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan founder all together. So you can see a pitch and give each other feedback. In each city, there are many, many pitch coaches, right? So Mike, who would you go to in which organizations in the community are teaching people to pitch in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, so some of our biggest partners in Saskatchewan, Colabs and Cultivator, the 2 main tech incubators here, Colabs in Saskatoon, Cultivator in Regina. We've got Saskatchewan Startup Institute helps founders at the early stage. WESC helps women founders. So lots of different opportunities to find resources around pitching. For us, the peer-to-peer pitch practice prior to that pitch event is also really helpful. Getting feedback from investors. Investors often approach things from a different lens than your typical sort of like startup support organizations. Not that they don't add value, but we're just approaching it from a different perspective. So it is important to get feedback from people who are investing their own money. And then also feedback from founders who've been through the process before. Yeah.
So yeah, I see a couple other questions here. I do want to, I think we should answer this question from Manitoba and Edmonton as well though. So maybe quickly, Manitoba, Richard, who would you go to for sort of pitch advice and pitch practice in Manitoba?
Yeah, so a lot of the companies that apply are already connected to. They come through North Forge or Manitoba Tech Accelerator. So those are our two main ones. But if you come to the happy hours and connect with anyone there, we can point you into. There's some people that are really experienced in this, and if they're around, I'm thinking Chris Schmidt. Like the for Manitoba, the founders of Bold Commerce, which massive company are there, and they've done that. So there's lots of people, that individuals that will help outside of North Forge and MTA, but North Forge and MTA.
Right. I think Calgary, obviously the guys at Platform Calgary, they have the incubators, but they have, I think the same with Edmonton, with the Alberta Catalyzer program, does a lot of pitch training. But there's certainly like Edmonton Unlimited in Edmonton and Platform Calgary in Calgary, you can get connected to lots of different people that can help you with your pitch. I do think it's important to reiterate that the pitch is like a public showcase pitch. We're not a pitch competition, so you do want to sort of balance like what is the purpose of your pitch. And I think when you're thinking about the public pitching, and for us, it's about connecting with investors who maybe aren't in our network, or who are watching the recording on YouTube later, or other venture capital firms, or other customers potentially. People could introduce you to customers for your product. So thinking about the pitch as a public promoting your company to the public and showcasing your company to the public and what you're doing, and less about why the Startup TNT investors should be investing, because we do the due diligence and we have your investor deck, not your pitch deck. We go a little bit deeper or a lot deeper than the pitch. So I think that is an important thing to think about as you're thinking about your pitch. There. And there was some questions about the format. So for the top 20, it's a 3-minute pitch. There's no Q&A. But for the finale, it's a 4-minute pitch. And then we get some investors from our due diligence, generally the investor who's been leading due diligence on your company, to do 2 or 3 questions for 2 minutes there at the end. Okay, any other? Yes, and Winnie's reiterating, we are firm on the time. 3-minute pitch. We have, especially at the top 20. I mean, that's a lot of companies. That's already 60 minutes of pitches. And we do give opportunities for our sponsors and partners to showcase themselves a little bit too. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it here, guys. 2 minutes left, unless there are any other follow-up questions. Our email addresses are there. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. You've also got our general mailbox, your friends. If you can always send an email to that one, and we will get back to you. We also have a newsletter in every region. So all of us are writing every Friday morning. Or Friday over the weekend, we're writing a newsletter. Comes out on Monday. So if you want any updates on what's going on with Startup TNT, even now, you can sign up for our newsletter on our webpage, and you'll get those updates from your local community lead. Okay. Anything else, guys? Did I miss anything? No? Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop